I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're calling to order the Utility Service Board meeting of Monday, March 13th. Are there any, the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the February 27th meeting. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll next move on to the approval of claims. So the first is the standard invoices for a total of $1,029,843.84. Are there any questions on the standard invoices? Jeff?
I just have one, and that is on the top of page 8, the SSW Enterprises. Is the electrostatic cleaning, special cleaning that we implemented for COVID? Yeah. And do we want to continue that indefinitely, or was the time frame for that? It just caught my eye today, and I thought, I wonder how long we're going to do that.
I'm not positive on how long when someone reports a case, they report it downtown to the risk manager, and they tell us what we have to do. So.
So that varies.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it varies from case to case, but I know if we have one in these offices here, they call us and we have to tell them when we've had the cleaning service come in and do it.
But it's not done every month. It's done.
No. Correct.
Ad hoc.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And another question, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, is this something that is implemented throughout the city, or is this something that is just being done at CBU?
To my knowledge, it's done throughout the city. It's
Okay.
being implemented by the city risk department.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any questions at this end? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the standard invoices say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is the approval of the utility bills for a total of $41,407.12. Any questions on the utility bills? Nope. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Next item are the wire transfers for a total of $518,272.87. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And the final are the customer refunds for a total of $305.68. Are there any questions on the customer refunds? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda for a total of $73,477. And
Good evening, James Hall, Assistant Director of T&D. I'm pleased to present tonight's consent agenda, again totaling $73,477. The first item is Corson Fire and Security at $4,042. The second item, Breakaway Performance Group, LLC, $20,000. The third item, Overhead Door Company of Bloomington, $3,050. The fourth item, Commercial Services of Bloomington, $9,785. The fifth item, Xylem Water Solutions, $3,300. The sixth item, Heflin Industries, $4,000. The seventh item, Monroe Owen Appraisal, $9,000. The eighth item, Range Line Tapping Service, $20,300. And I believe that is all. Is there any member who wishes to consider one or more of these items individually?
I'd like to pull item B from the consent agenda.
Okay. We'll pull item E.
I
E,
don't-
The Xylem.
No, B as in
B,
Breakaway
Performance
Performance Group.
Okay.
Are you able to answer questions on this, or we should wait until Vic gets
well,
here?
okay.
Or does someone else?
Maybe.
We'll do our best, yes.
Okay.
And That'll be after the consent agenda, the rest of it's approved.
That was going to be my next question. So all of those in favor of approving the consent agenda minus item B, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay.
Now we'll pull item B for discussion. I had questions about this one. This is with Breakaway Performance Group, which is, by the definition of the Exhibit A, scope of work, it simply says management training. There's no additional input on it. I'm also concerned, or I have questions as to why we are utilizing a contractor that has recently moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and are we going to be responsible for paying all of those fees? And
What fees?
travel fees versus charging
So-
from Valparaiso, Indiana
Sure.
to now Santa Fe, New Mexico.
All right. Hi, Chris Wheeler with City Legal Department. The group that is that we are contracting with has had great success providing training to the city, and so has a good track record, and that is why Utilities is wishing to use them in particular, as opposed to anybody else to do management training. And the fact that they are moving has no impact on any cost because it will all be done remotely. They won't set foot in the building. They won't be here in person. It'll all be Zoom meetings or whatever type of platform they're using, but all done online. So there won't be any travel expenses that we're covering. It doesn't change the cost of the contract. The service is merely the training for management, for utilities management.
Go ahead, Kirk?
So, do we know the kind of training? Is it
I do not, no.
Strategic
I'm not sure if
planning or-
anybody's present who has a better idea on that. I don't have a particular knowledge of what the particular training is. I did know the other answers, though.
Okay.
If it's something that the board wishes to table, then we can bring those staff members in who have been responsible for sponsoring this particular agreement. Because it went on the consent agenda, I suspect that's why nobody who actually sponsored the training is present. And so at the next meeting, we could have somebody here who could actually provide better detail on the exact type of training that's being done.
Well, and the signer of the agreement also crossed out portions of the contract, so
The
insurance
The
portion.
contract, right, because they're not setting foot in the building at all, the
Okay.
liability issues change a great deal.
Gotcha.
They are a small operation that doesn't carry a robust insurance policy in the first place. So the opportunity for issues concerning liability are very minuscule in an agreement like this. And that's why we were okay with accepting that change in the contract terms.
So in terms of how this group has been used by the city, what types of services have they already provided?
I don't know that. I just
Okay.
know that that's the reason that was provided to me for the reason why they selected this particular group.
Okay. Well, I would like to move that we table this agenda because I would like to see some additional information on this before awarding it. I don't know if I have a second on that?
second?
Second, okay. All those in favor of tabling this for a future meeting, the next meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. So Holly, will you make sure that that gets communicated to Frank, too, that that's something that needs to come back at the next meeting? Thank you so much. And thank you for stepping in. And also, too, thank you for stepping in today, and you're stepping in, too. So thank you, everybody. Such is what happens during spring break week in Bloomington, huh? So, okay, so moving on, we will now go to the next item on the agenda, which is to request approval of the write-off of unclaimed balances, which Matt is not here, so I'm going to assume Missy's taking this?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So each year, we go through our credit balances and identify any that are at least 7 years old. And Paula brings a report together for us and gives us this total. So we're just asking permission to absorb those back into our coffers, I guess.
Are there any questions? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the write-off of the unclaimed credit balances?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the request for the approval of an agreement for consulting services with American Structure Point, and that is Jane Fleeg. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jane Fleeg for the record. I'm bringing before you an agreement that we would like to enter into with American Structure Point for design and bid services for another water main relocation project that we have to do based on an NDOT project this time. The location is State Road 4546 bypass and Arlington Road. We have a 12-inch water main that is in conflict with their proposed ramp work at that location. So this consultant, American Structure Point, has provided this not to exceed amount of $66,900. Of that, the design is $49,700, bidding is $7,400, and construction administration services is $9,800. So I would be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Are there any questions? Oh, Jeff.
Given that it's NDOT work, do we get compensated for any of these engineering
I
fees?
wish.
The work itself?
It's in the right-of-way.
Ah,
We're there at their mercy, unfortunately.
okay. Thank you.
And just a general, so are they putting in a ramp at Arlington?
They are. So westbound on the bypass will have a ramp going up to Arlington Road.
Okay. And will there be do you know if there's going to be then an entrance ramp from Arlington Road as
There
well?
will- there will
No.
not be.
It's just an exit ramp. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh. It was a-
They were saying that they are having trouble with people going over to Gorley and coming up to get over.
Okay.
And so they're trying to make this more efficient, so that would be the only ramp that they would have. And it's a huge slope in there, and they're building a huge retaining wall that would be right on top of our water main, so unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Next is Dan Hudson with a request for the approval of an amendment to the agreement with Commonwealth Engineers for the lift station.
For the record, I'm Dan Hudson, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Bloomington Utilities. And what I'm requesting is an addendum to the Commonwealth contract for the sanitary lift station design. The original contract was for 4 lift station complete design and replacement and multi-lift station sites for panel replacement, and also every site will have an emergency hookup for a generator. Excuse me. The addendum is for to manage a alternative project delivery. That's similar, that will probably be a guaranteed savings contract to oversee the construction and to do the design of a new force main for Basswood lift station. During the original design, it was found that that was the most cost-effective solution for Basswood. And because it currently discharges into an 8-inch sewer, we're going to put it in a 30-inch sewer, so it has more capacity. And that leaves us the ability for eliminating the Copper Beach lift station in the future. The amendment is for 193,240 with a total not to exceed of 553,170.
Question.
Any questions?
Is Beechwood there just to the east of 69?
Yes, yeah, it's in a apartment complex, kind of down below.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, I don't think, are we to the point, I haven't missed anything, right? We're on old business? Is that correct? Is there any old business from the board? Any old business from staff? Any new business from the board? Any new business from staff? And subcommittee reports, I will report on that one, and that is from the administrative and rules and or actually, it's just administrative committee. We have provided the board members, after the meeting, we were given instructions to go ahead and work with everybody to get assignments made, which we have done so, and split everybody up, and we eliminated the rules, I shouldn't say eliminated, we've taken the rules and regulations committee and put those duties within the administrative committee. In addition, Frank has put together a subcommittee meeting calendar, at least that's what's proposed, so that we can get that out there, because these meetings do have to be made public, correct? Yes. So we've got to keep those on the agenda. As a reminder, the committee members are the ones that are responsible for going to those subcommittee meetings. However, it is open to all board members that you're welcome to attend and sit in on any of those sessions. Are there any questions or changes to what we've proposed? Yes.
Of course, I have a question. So in the past, we've never had set meeting dates without agendas. Is the purpose to, let me just ask the question, what's the purpose of setting the meetings ahead of having an agenda?
Well, the hope is that we would have an agenda for each of those meetings, and it would be an opportunity for the board members to hear any of the concerns that, or any projects or concerns that will be coming up, and they would be slated into here for those dates. So for example, finance, we're going to, we know we're going to go over the budget in the finance committee. If there is nothing to meet on, there will be a notice that there's nothing to meet on, correct?
Suspect if there's not going to be an agenda and nothing to meet on, we would cancel the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
But this is
that
at
makes
least to
sense
put
then.
this on everybody's calendar so that you know. And in addition, if the board has any type of agenda that they would like to propose to that group, if there's something that we need to be doing, it's up to us as board members to contact the staff members for an update at those particular subcommittee meetings.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. So if there are no changes or additions to the subcommittees, I would like to have a request for the approval of the subcommittee appointments. Do I need to do this separately, or can I do them both? Can I do them at the same time?
The appointments that have been made as to each of the subcommittees, is there an actual list that shows who everybody is? Then I think you could probably do it in one fell swoop.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the subcommittee appointments as well as the subcommittee calendar for 2023?
I move that we accept the calendar and the subcommittees as proposed.
Okay.
That second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Right. We shall have our subcommittees in place. Staff reports. I believe we do have something coming up today. Is this Liz? Yes. Come on down, Liz.
Okay, this is going to be a little lengthier than a lot of the items on the agenda. I apologize in advance.
Liz, can you do us one favor? Because I know Molly is now new to the board. Could you tell us what MS4 means?
It was going to be my very first thing that we get to.
Thank you so
okay,
much.
So I'm Liz Carter. I'm the MS4 program coordinator out of the environmental division. So first we're just going to go over the MS4 program. The MS4 stands for the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And the boundary is on your screen here. Basically, the entire city limits of Bloomington minus IU, they have their own MS4. So an MS4 it oversees the stormwater in the city of Bloomington. So we're really concerned about making sure pollutants don't get into our streams, which then lead to our rivers, our lakes, and eventually to the ocean. So that's what my whole group does. For the various ways that pollutants can get into our stormwater, we try to stop that from happening. So I came from planning before I worked at CVU, and when people ask me what I do now, I tell them that I'm the Lorax of our streams, and I think that's kind of a succinct way of putting it. So we have a permit with IDEM. It's our general permit, our MS4 general permit, and we have to do an annual report, which is due April 1st, so real soon. One of the things we have to do before that report is give a presentation to a board about the status of our program. So here I am. Also, if you guys have questions at any point, feel free to just stop me when I hit the end of a slide. I won't make you wait until the end, because by then you'll probably be kind of out of your mind. So I've broken our program into 4 distinct sections that I'll cover briefly. The first is education and outreach. The second is active construction and everything that goes into that. So obviously we review plans at the beginning. We do site inspections and enforcement when needed during, and then at the end we close out the project. We also have CBU's maintenance and construction of green infrastructure, so various rain gardens that you see out in the city that we maintain, and we have been building some basins and stuff like that recently. And then lastly, just investigation from complaints we get from the public. Of course, everyone at the city has, that kind of a role as part of their jobs. So education and outreach. So first of all, my education outreach person, Christy Lindberg, is here this evening. So should you have any questions about this, she is here to answer them. We do a bunch of different programs. I kind of broke this down into a couple of the biggest ones. Otherwise, this slide would be 10 slides. So we do adopt a drain, where members of the public, just like it sounds, they adopt a drain, they keep it clear. And we had 43 new drain adoptions in 2022. We're actually up pretty significantly from that so far this year, because the volunteer network had a big push for our adopt a drain, and we've had a ton of interest, which is really exciting. We also do drain marking. If you see the picture to your left here, the no dumping, there was a laser pointer, but it disappears on the screen. The no dumping on that inlet there is the storm drain marking program. So Christy will, during different events, Lotus is one, Pride is another, get groups of folks together and kind of go on drain marking excursions. And this is the result of one of the Pride ones. And then the third program, which I know you guys hear about pretty much every year, is our residential storm grant program. So we have a section of money put aside where members of the public contact us and they say, I have a stormwater problem in my yard. And we evaluate those programs or those applications, preferences given to those that are in lower income neighborhoods, and to applications that serve more than one property. So one person's basement is flooding, that's not as big a deal if we have a whole city block that has, stormwater sitting in like a multiple yard area. So we evaluate those every year. We did 10 projects last year, and Christy and I are in kind of the final stages of closing them out and getting the contractors paid right now.
So do you actively seek out adopt a drain people for drains that are typically problematic, or do you wait for people to volunteer?
I think we more have people come to us. I mean, if we had someone complaining about a drain, we would certainly say, you could adopt this drain, because folks do, of course, with you report and stuff like that, they contact us and they say, hey, the street in front of my house is flooding, there's a bunch of debris in my drain, can you come clear it out? And of course we will, but there might be a push there to say, you could also adopt this drain. So no, we don't actively contact members of the public saying, hey, you're in an area that we could really use this, but it's not a bad idea. Yes.
Drains we have in the city-ish?
That's a great question.
Tens of thousands, right? Yeah. Like, I for some reason, I feel like 26. I don't know if that's correct. I have a piece of paper on my board that tells me, but it's in the tens of thousands.
And some of them are private, so not all of them belong to the city. So when you get into neighborhoods that, like, the streets were never accepted as city streets, meaning the city doesn't pick up their trash, the city doesn't plow their streets, oftentimes those will be private drains, and it'll be on a homeowners association or something like that for them to take care of it. But the majority of inlets in the city limits do belong to us. Okay. So the other part of our education outreach is running events. So the contractors workshop happens every November, and we get a bunch of contractors from around town to come talk to us. We talk to them about erosion control and green infrastructure, and that's sort of our opportunity to try to shape the way they look at their construction sites and to remind them that erosion control is an important part of their projects. Christy has been doing Bug Fest the last couple of years, which is just really exciting and fun. On Earth Day last year, Catherine, you can see in the picture to the top right, she gave a tour of Switchyard Park's green infrastructure and taught the public how all of that works. We had a Jackson Creek cleanup last year, and you can see James in the bottom left removing an old tire from a creek. And we had a Lake Monroe shoreline cleanup. We have a ton more events than this, but I tried to hit some big ones for us last year.
What's the attendance rate of the contractors?
The contractors workshop, 40?
We had, I think it almost hit 50. We were at maximum attendance this past year.
And I do want to also add, it's not just contractors, it's also engineers. So the folks who are putting together the plans that we review, we want to catch people all along that process so that we're getting plans designed the way we want to see them, we're getting contractors building the way we want to see them build, and then the whole process works well, ideally. All right. Oh no. Oh, there you go. So the next thing that we work on a lot is active construction. Like I just said, we do plan review. So for the MS4, we are responsible for plan review and inspection for all projects that disturb more than an acre of land. So in the year 2022, that was 12 projects. Kat has corrected me that it was 13. There was a project that we didn't touch in planning, so I didn't know about it. So she reviewed 13 different projects, and this is a ton of time. We often will have to do 3, 4, 5 rounds of reviews. This project that you're seeing on your screen, it's called Aspen Heights. It borders on Kinzer Pike and Gorley Pike, and it's one of the larger ones that we reviewed. So during this process, we have to review these plans before these folks can file for their item permit. We have to sign off on the NOI, which is a notice of intent. So they can't file their state permits until our staff has signed off on their erosion control plan specifically. We also do review for some of the city projects, though we don't have, technically the county does the review before it goes up to the state, but for example, the Hopewell project taking place on the former hospital site, that's a city project. While we're happy to review it and give feedback, go inspect it, to give them a hand, like it's not really within our jurisdiction. And then some of the larger projects, we had 2 at Catalent. One is mostly buttoned up, the other is still ongoing. Water's Edge is the large project on South Walnut near Bloomington. Aspen Heights is, like I said, the one that borders on Kinzer Pike and Gorley. Retreat at Switchyard is the affordable housing project just across Walnut, kind of down the street from us here. And then Rocket Fuels is at 2nd and Patterson. And those are the biggest ones that we took a look at last year, and most of them are in the construction phase now.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned state review. Is there a triggering mechanism like minimum size for that?
Right, so you have to get a state permit if you are disturbing over an acre of land. And so that's where our partnership comes in. If you're disturbing less than an acre of land, your erosion control plan and all that, it's still reviewed, it's done by the planning department. So that was my old job. So when the bigger projects go through us, then they get permitted through the state.
Thank you.
Okay, so when we go on to the construction phase, my team is responsible for inspections. There are 42 sites that are considered active at this point. I put active in quotation marks because some of them, it doesn't look like this. There's not dirt moving, there's not a crane. Some of them just haven't gotten closed out for various reasons. Most often that they're post-construction, if infrastructure is not done. So they were supposed to build a basin, we're not happy with it yet. They were supposed to, build a swale. It hasn't been vegetated appropriately yet. So those are kind of the lingering ones. I'd say we have about 20 that are active, such as the one you're seeing on your screen. This is the old Kmart site. It's called District at Latimer Square. So we do monthly inspections for these higher risk, meaning they're actually active sites. And then we've been taking enforcement actions when it has become necessary, which is a little newer for this program. Okay. So the third kind of leg of this program is the two gentlemen that are on my team that we kind of call them the green team, the green infrastructure crew. So there are 18 city-owned green infrastructure facilities, such as the one you see here on your left. This is one of the rain garden bump outs on East Allen Street. So there's quite a few rain gardens items like that my team maintains all year round. So the 7 line, the new rain gardens that were built with that. There's on Olive Street, East Allen. There's some brand new ones coming up on East 19th Street. And then, of course, the rain gardens at CVU are within their purview as well. There's also some mechanical BMPs around the city that they may.
Best management practice.
What?
A best management practice.
Thank you.
It's shown in this little figure to your right. So as opposed to being green infrastructure where it filters pollutants out and just lets water run through using vegetative matter, it's more of a mechanical item. And those are around town as well. The biggest concentration of them are at Miller Showers, and my team takes care of those as well. So we had some construction projects last year. We had 4 construction projects that this was a partnership with the engineering group would make up the plans for this. The T&D would do a lot of the shovels and the groundwork. And then the MS4 team would plan planting plans, be looking into things like amended soils that go into basins, and then plant it out and maintain them until these structures were vegetated enough to kind of go off on their own, which takes a bit of time. So the Deer Park Basin was one of the projects. There's a couple little basins along Devon Lane leading up to Deer Park, but there was a large basin built there. Over in Evergreen Village, which is off of a little bit west of Rockport or Suzie Street, there was a swale that our guys pulled out, kind of regraded and planted. There was also a basin. And then off of Countryside Lane, that's the one that's pictured here. Unfortunately, this picture was taken today. We have not hit the part of the year where it's nicely vegetated yet, but I think it will be very nice in a few months. Okay, so investigations, we get complaints from a lot of different places. The easiest for us to pull numbers on would be U-Report and CityWorks. CityWorks is our internal system where if control takes a call and it's an issue for my team, it gets logged into CityWorks and routed to my team. So I went through the data of what we had records of for last year, and on the screen you can see the breakdown of types of complaints we get. So a few from construction sites, quite a few from people with private property issues. So, and that's not to say that we can't do anything about it. Sometimes that private property is, we have a common area in our neighborhood, we have a pond. It's not working well. Can you come look at it? Can you give us advice? Is there something we can do? So sometimes it is truly just, there's water pooling in my backyard. We can certainly recommend the residential stormwater grant program, but there's not a lot we can do on private property. We can give advice though. And then we had 13 public property. That's mostly infrastructure in the right-of-way. Drains that are clogged, culverts that aren't working properly, items that are within our ability to fix. And then the last one is IDDEs, which are illicit discharges. So if someone calls up and says, I saw a guy pouring paint down the storm drain, right? Or downtown, it could be grease, fat oil, something like that. We had a total of 17 IDDEs logged last year, and I've got examples on both sides of the screen. The right-hand side is a sanitary sewer overflow that happened on East 3rd Street, and then the left side is a gas leak that ended up in the creek. And you can see the measures being taken to clean that up. All right, so we're on to our milestones, the things that we're really proud of from last year. I will say I worked one day of 2022 in this position, so these are all of Kat's accomplishments, and I just came in at the end and made a PowerPoint. The Stormwater Master Plan was adopted in March of 2022. That can be found on our website. That was an item that's required from IDEM, from our state permit. We had to get that put together. We've been implementing some new software. You can see it on the bottom left of the screen. It's helping us track inspections for construction sites, enforcement for those sites. It's helping us track our education and outreach items. It's just kind of a store place for our data. So when I come back next year, I hopefully will have a lot more numbers and a lot more insight for you. It was like being implemented as the year went on, so it's just not complete yet for 2022. We also had a stormwater quality management plan that was sent to IDEM, I think at the end of December, so we counted this as 2022, though the date on it I think is 2023. All right, so the Lower Salt Creek Watershed Management Plan got completed last year, and that was in partnership with Lawrence County, Monroe County, City of Bedford, U.S. Forest Service, and Indiana DNR. So that was a big multi-agency management plan that came together. The MS4 program, as I mentioned, we were talking about construction, started really focusing more on enforcement for construction sites. So there's always been enforcement for things like IDDEs. You see someone dumping grease down the storm drain, they're gonna get a ticket more than likely. But going after an enforcement program for construction sites was more of an undertaking, and Ms. Zager really ran after that. And then Catherine was promoted to assistant director, and a new MS4 coordinator came aboard, and here I am. All right, so what we're planning to do this year. We are updating Title 10 of the Bloomington Municipal Code. So right now, Title 10 is titled wastewater. So you'd think sanitary sewer, but we also have stormwater combined in it. Stormwater, quite honestly, was added as kind of an afterthought. It wasn't at the top of mind for a long time, but it's becoming, more important as folks realize that it is very important. So we're updating that ordinance. It's been a while since it's been updated. Of course, it will come to you all before it heads to City Council. We are taking on street sweeping from the street department. Our hope is to focus more on keeping pollutants and debris out of our storm system, whereas theirs was more like some gravel spilled on this road, can you come sweep it up? We're a lot more focused on keeping our storm drains clean. The other thing we're working on is a post-construction infrastructure program. So we don't have a whole lot of teeth in terms of regulations or enforcement of post-construction. So the idea is we've got all these really good requirements for you have to build a pond on your property to contain your stormwater. But we don't have a lot about what happens 5 years from now when nobody's done any maintenance and it's silting in or it's full of invasive vegetation that's now spreading throughout our storm system. So we're working on coming up with regulations, inspections, enforcement, so that it's not just that you build something great, it's that it stays great and continues to help our community going forward. Yes?
I have a question for you, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but we as the board, we talked a while back about taking on the street sweeping. Shortly after we approved that, the mayor announced that I don't know if it was the mayor or that they're no longer going to do leaf pickup. Mm-hmm. So did that just not make our job 100 times more difficult?
I'm sure it did. And I've also been informed and then told my staff that if we get complaints about leaf collection, it's going to go to the innovation director because that's where that directive came from.
The innovation director at this?
Out of the mayor's office, yes.
Out of the mayor's office. Wonderful.
Yes. Yes, it will make our jobs more difficult. So we'll see.
Okay.
So I'm sure we are gonna field complaints that storm drains are clogged because the leaves didn't get picked up. I'm sure we will. So, it'll be an exciting time.
And it is possible that leaf collection could continue under a new mayor.
Not this year.
Not this year, but
Yeah.
we're not going to have a new mayor this year.
Quite possible, yes. Yes.
It's a campaign pledge of certain candidates I've seen. So that's why I bring it up. I'm not
Yeah.
endorsing anyone, but
Yes.
it is a reality we might face or enjoy.
You know, that is an interesting question for us, because if we're taking the street sweeper trucks, they're not designed for the massive amounts of leaves that we have in these neighborhoods.
In Tree City, USA.
No, I mean, that's not, I don't know how that's gonna work, other than, they can barely keep up with what they need to do now, and those trucks are gonna have to get emptied more frequently if they're trying to sweep stuff up, and if they don't use the vacuum system, wow. This is gonna be a challenge this fall. And we're gonna, if it's our responsibility now, we're gonna need to put a plan in place. I don't know whether that means, Public Works is gonna transfer the vacuum cleaners over to us, because they're different than street sweepers. But, we would have a whole lot of plugged up storm drains with leaves, because they just, they cover up the grates,
Right.
the inlets.
Yeah, and I think Public Works will continue to be a partner with us. From what I'm hearing, they don't have an intent of, cutting and running on us and saying good luck. So,
Who's gonna take care of when they transfer the sweeper trucks over to us, which division's gonna handle that? In US Utilities?
Probably Cat's division. We don't know yet. We don't know if it's going to be T&D and environmental together, because we need operators. It has to be a heavy equipment operator or that classification within the union. So we have to figure, and my group has 8 of those. Cat has 1 yet? Maybe? Starting next week, we'll have 1. We're having a meeting with Vic and I with Adam Wason and Joe Van Dieter, the street department person, later this month to talk about that and some other things, about how we transfer it over and some other things that need to happen.
What are their plans for code enforcement? That's going to be really important to prevent these clogged drains that we're going to be responsible for. So that would be something I'd want to know exactly what their plans are for increased code enforcement this fall. 1. 2, I remember asking the question about, when we were talking about this, the shared responsibility of city, given that several of the purposes of street cleaning are still city-owned. They may be transferring the responsibility of us doing the sweeping, but we're still providing a service to them. And I recall that there was some original line item, some amount of funding that they were going to be providing us. Is that something that's going to continue in perpetuity, or was that a one-year line item?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would want to know the answer to that question as well, because we will be providing the city with services for their part of street cleaning. And there were maybe 8 or so benefits of street cleaning listed. Certainly a public health service is still on the city. And there was, I think, maybe 1 or 2 that was in certainly a service that they should still provide. So I think they should have a line item for us every year. That's all.
I think in light of our discussion, I guess we need to be working with staff to make sure there's a smooth transition so that when October rolls around, we don't have flooded streets and it's the whole thing. It's certainly, there should be a phased transition in my mind. We'd start out with a plan, and we need to cross-train employees. We need to put procedures in place for citizen concerns to be voiced and how we would handle those. Public Works is doing all that now, and if it lands on utilities, then, hey, I've always had all the faith in the world that utilities has always been a department in the city that could do anything. A lot better than other places. And I think they still can, but we're gonna have to have a good plan in place to do it.
Agreed, yeah. We don't want the streets to flood and we don't want the citizens to be angry, right? So,
Well, and we don't want to sabotage your good work. Because, boy, it's, there's just all kinds of aspects to this, but we worked so hard to keep local flooding in check in the streets and in the neighborhoods and things like that. And when we don't, if the inlets are plugged with leaves, that's not good.
so,
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey, good report.
It's
We-
all the
we
more
got,
reason
like,
to
a
have
couple more here.
people adopt a drain.
that's right. If we
You
can
know,
get
I'd be
everyone
happy
to,
adopt the drain in front of my house, and maybe everyone who has a drain in front of their house.
Something
Would
tells
it
me you're
really
gonna get a
adopt it?
form in the mail or something.
oh, you might get a form before you leave. Christy's real quick. Okay, so we only have 2 slides left, I promise. So other items for this year, we're doing 3 basins this year that CBU's constructing. We've got 2 over in the Waterman neighborhood, and there's a very large one going in on South Sayre, just south of Sherwood Oaks Christian Church. So it's a piece of property the city's owned for a long time, and we were given a green light to build a very exciting multi-bayed basin there. And we may also be having some interns from IU helping us with that, so it could be a really cool learning experience for them too. I don't think they're technically interns, but some students from IU might be helping us with it, and that'd be really cool. We've been working on the green infrastructure standard details. It's a whole package of drawings. In front of you is various kinds of permeable pavement, permeable pavers, porous asphalt, stuff like that. So there's a whole package of standard drawings that's been is being reviewed by the planning department and city engineering, the downtown engineering folks. Our goal for this year is to get that peer review wrapped up because green infrastructure, it interacts with our streetscape. It's often in the right of way, and both planning and engineering have standards for that. That's sort of why we got them involved, because we don't want to be showing something in our standard drawings that the engineers say, this isn't safe for traffic. So we're trying to finish working with them, get our drawings done, and then we can release them for the public, because a lot of folks just don't really know how to design green infrastructure. They've been designing gray infrastructure for their whole professional lives. So we're hoping that will help out. Lastly, we are developing a green ditch initiative. So when you see ditches along the side of the road, often you'll see a concreted ditch to sort of, direct water. We have a little bit of money and some great ideas about getting folks to plant these out. The big hurdle is if the ditch in front of your house has been planted out as like a native garden, now that homeowner needs to maintain it. So finding folks that are willing to do that kind of work will be an exciting challenge. Yes?
Can you give an example of where we might see those ditches? I just can't picture one.
Where's the one that we're already working with? Do you remember?
So, a lot of ditches are actually just turf grass. So a lot of ditches are just turf grass and they're conveying it. A lot of times you'll see maybe someone's driveway and a driveway culvert. It's conveying it towards either an inlet or some sort of retention or detention space. Yeah. So usually in front of houses, in front of folks' houses. That's where you'll see
Sometimes it's between lot lines too, like in condo complexes and things like that. I think I've seen those over like in Hyde Park Village. Those condos there on South Sayre, they've got concrete ditches that run along the lot lines that collect the storm drain and then run it into the creek.
All right. Okay, last slide. Questions and feedback. The staff members here do think this is funny. This beaver was removed from the Miller Showers structures, the pipes, by my team a couple weeks ago. We did want to keep him as a mascot, but he is, or she is, a wild beaver and has been released to an undisclosed location in compliance with state regulations. So, yes. We just wanted to get a picture of the beaver in here. He's very popular.
That's not the one that we had in Campus River, was it? Didn't move it there, did you?
No. The state law, the DNR law says that if you want to release the beaver, it needs to be on a private property with the property owner's permission. And we did that.
Wow.
Yes. Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for putting up with my very long presentation.
Great job, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any other staff reports? Yes.
We have a few more things. So Vic wanted me to let you know, the Indiana Finance Authority is doing a regional meeting here at our utility office in this room on March 21st from 9:30 to 11:30. There's a range of topics on there. Some of it will be about lead line inventory and some money available that IFA has, and there's other topics in there. But it's a regional event, and we're hosting it. And so if you have time on March 21st, I believe that is a Thursday? Tuesday, thank you, sir. 9:30 to 11:30.
And again, what was the name of the,
It's Indiana Finance Authority, IFA. They administer almost all infrastructure money through the state, or from the federal government to the states. There were a couple of anniversaries and exam passes. We had one 20-year anniversary. Robert or Bobby Snedeker has been with the city for over 20 years. This month, Paul Edwards and Brad Elkins, who are our line people or specialized crew leaders, passed their DSL test this week. And we've had several members of my crew and other parts of the utility going through different kinds of trainings in this. We did a lot of training this past month, and so we wanted to recognize those people. And then something for the board pertaining to Winston Thomas. You saw a contract in the consent agenda for Monroe Owen appraisals. We were supposed to have a meeting on the 27th. There were 3 items we were supposed to discuss. We're going to have to push that back 6 weeks because the appraisal company can't get to us right away. And so we're going to have to move that back. You will still see on the board meeting for the 27th the demo and restoration of the site that we want to do, that we're going to need to do anyway on that front portion, and where all the old buildings and some of our rubble has been for the past few years.
What is the timing of the financial analysis that we were going to consider prior to moving ahead with exactly that type of project?
That's part of why everything's being pushed back, because we need appraisals on this building.
This building, that's what
To
the appraisal.
know, that's the appraisal that we can't get to until the end of the month, which would be part of the overall analysis.
Sure,
of financial structure.
Right, but I was referring to the demo, the demolition and whatever else some other project you were just referring to? Did I miss something? I'm sorry.
No, yeah, so we'll have a contract for the demolition of, or regrading of the area.
Right.
But the overall financial cost of it was part of needed the appraisal of this building. Right? Is that, or am I misunderstanding your question?
Well, the demolition of what specifically?
Well, we have a trickling filter basin down there that we need space for whatever in the future that we cannot use right now. And there's other areas down there that need to be regraded so that we can use them, whether we put buildings down there or whether we are going to use them as storage in the future for us.
Okay, couched in those terms, I understand now
Yeah.
what you're saying and why we could move ahead with those. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, he just wanted me to let you know that there's 3 items we were going to discuss on the 27th that will have to be moved because the appraisal of this building can't be done in the time that we had hoped. And I believe that is all I have.
All right. Are there any other petitions or communications from staff or otherwise? I would like to give a personal shout out to Kenny, and I don't know his last name, and his team. They were, we had a pretty large water main break in my neighborhood, and they were there, were getting it fixed, and they did an awesome job. And I think they still have to come back and do some more work on a storm. In doing so, they found out the storm drain was also collapsed, and did a very nice job. Great team, so thank you to those guys. Anything else? All right, well then, is there a motion to adjourn? Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.